So on our conversation about nuclear warfare and the escalation of Ukraine and Russia, the situation may be, we know that here in Canada, they have pretty much pledged allegiance to serving as much of the military industrial complex for Ukraine operations. They want to pledge as much money. They're trying to steal away from Canadians. They're trying to use tax dollars. They're printing a bunch of money off to Ukraine, which is one of the main causes of inflation. And to paraphrase the words of Stephen Colbert that want to manipulate you and lie to you about this, they say that, well, the reason, gasoline costs $9 a gallon is because you have to have a clear conscience. But he doesn't tell you that in order to have a clear conscience, you're serving a bunch of bloodthirsty war hawk mongers that want to just decimate a lot of the eastern territories in Europe and take it all for themselves, which is what's happening right now. So that leads me to this little scenario involving our national security minister. So as Government EXE is corrupt points out, this was during question period today. Bill Blair, who's the National Ministry of Defense under Justin Trudeau's Liberals, says Canada has fallen short of nearly $800 million in aid to Ukraine so far. Well, isn't it kind of funny that he's saying that we're short on Ukraine funds even though we don't have a capping point on how much we need to spend? You ever notice that? They keep telling us we're short on Ukraine funding. We're short on Ukraine funding. But if it's, veteran assistance, they have a cap on that. If it's aimed towards increasing healthcare, they have a cap on that. If it's education, they have a cap on that. If it's infrastructure, they have a set limit on that. But aiding another country to advance warfare, funny how they don't cook the books. They don't put an end mark on this. And considering the fact that we spent billions of dollars already, as he's pointing out here, how exactly are we $800 million short? Is it that we're short of that money, or is it the fact that they're demanding more? That NATO and the military-industrial complex that are using this as laundry fund to blackmail Canada and saying, hey, you got to come up with more money. Look at what your friends in America are doing. They're sacrificing billions. What are you guys doing? So he says, didn't we just hand over billions? Is all of our money going to Ukraine cocaine or something? Unbelievable. This government is robbing us blind. So here's what he had to say about this in the House of Commons.
The Ukrainian people have paid a terrible price for brutal Russian aggression. And throughout that time, Canada has been steadfast in our support for Ukraine and the Ukrainian people in the face of Russia's unjustified and illegal invasion. And just yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the supplementary estimates were tabled in this House. And these supplementary estimates contain $763 million in military aid to Ukraine. That's money for munitions, for training, and the tools that Ukrainians desperately require in order to win. Mr. Speaker, this year, unlike last year, I hope that every member of this House can find the courage to support this desperately required funding.
Yeah, I hope that every single member of Parliament has the courage. That's what it takes. Courage to take more tax dollars away from Canadians as we're dealing with a cost of living crisis, as we're dealing with inflation, as many, many families are unable to afford basic necessities to live. I hope those politicians have the courage to just siphon more Canadian dollars to send off to this proxy war, to send off to this money laundering scheme, so that cokehead Zelensky, the actor, can look like Rambo in this situation. I hope they can. I hope they can. It's funny he doesn't look off screen to check if his NATO handler's around him. Oh, okay. Yeah. Canada needs to give more money. Did I say that right? Yeah? Okay. Good. I would hate for what happens to me if I had the courage to actually draw back and be concerned about my own country, be concerned about our national security, because I can think of many different ways we could be influxing our military spending that a peaceful nation like Canada should not be enduring. We should be drawing that money and protecting people at the border. I mean, we just showed you the crisis in BC of human trafficking. There's a situation. There's something on national security that's not being addressed by bozos like him. And here's him after the House of Commons meeting. And again, just doubling down on the complete rhetoric, the complete propaganda that he's spewing here. Listen to this.
The Ukrainian people
U.S.-made missile into Russia?
Well, again, our expectation is that Ukraine will take the steps necessary to defend itself against attack.
Do you fear an escalation after the strike this morning?
Well, quite frankly, I think right now Russia has demonstrated its willingness to fire ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, all sorts of things from the safety of within their own country, and giving Ukraine the ability to defend itself, I think is the way to ensure that we move towards a peaceful resolution of the conflict.
Sweden has lowered the threshold to use nuclear weapons. How can you ensure that Canadians will remain safe? How can you de-escalate the situation?
Well, again, it's not our intention at all of de-escalating or to escalate the conflict.
Oh, did you hear that Freudian slip? Did you hear that? It's not our intentions to de-escalate. I mean, we're not here to escalate. Yeah. Yeah. I'm on camera here. I actually have to talk like a grown person and interact the public without, my devious intentions. It's not our job to escalate tensions. Let me play that again for people that didn't hear that.
How can you ensure that Canadians will remain safe? How can you de-escalate the situation?
Well, again, it's not our intention at all of de-escalating or to escalate the conflict. But I believe that providing Ukraine with the means to defend themselves against the illegal invasion, the attack that they've been undergoing, the missiles that have been fired into their country, that have hit critical infrastructure, their civilians.
I mean, it's got to take a lot of balls or a huge bank account to stand there in the House of Commons, the government representation building of Canada, and endlessly talk about defending Ukraine while Canadians are feeling unsecure, while our borders are being messed with, while we are dealing with desperate situations, while we're dealing with crime waves, while ordinary Canadians can't even defend themselves in this situation. But no, we're $800 million short of money laundering scheme money that we have to send and siphon away from people, siphon more out of your bank accounts. Now that they have opportunity to freeze your accounts, that's the scary part. Take that money away and send it off to Ukraine. Send it off for warfare. Send it off so we can de-escalate. What am I supposed to say? Where's my script? Ukraine must defend itself from attack of Russia. Repeat aimlessly. Okay, got it. Just crazy.
It's killed a lot of innocent people. Ukraine has a right to defend itself, and we support that.
Should we take seriously when Mr. Putin says that the threshold has been lowered for nuclear use?
Listen, again, our intent is peaceful resolution of that conflict, and we are supporting Ukraine in defending their sovereign territory and their citizens. And so, Mr. Putin, we've heard a lot of rhetoric, but quite frankly, it began with his illegal invasion of a sovereign country. And the right of that country, as all countries have the right to defend itself, I think is primary. And Canada supports Ukraine's right to defend itself against that illegal.
So, where was this guy back in, 2019, where Sydney News reported, and I wish I had this clip in my Rolodex here. Sydney News reported back in 2019 that the Canadian military knew that they were overseas in Ukraine to train with a bunch of white supremacists, that they're a bunch of neo-Nazis, that they're Azov battalion that are going to counteract against its own civilians. Where was this then? That we got to defend Ukrainians, we got to defend the sovereignty. Where was that when when the United States overthrew their government? Where was that then? Oh, well, now that Russia came in, now they got to defend their sovereignty. What a giant dupe this guy is. What a freaking dupe this guy is. He's a self-serving pundit. This guy has no interest in your security or our security, the nation's security here in Canada. But God, we got to do everything we can to support this money laundering scheme that we have cultivated, that all these NATO allies have put themselves into and been blackmailed and blasted into supporting. Otherwise, we don't know what's going to happen to your countries. Well, because of the endless support, high inflation, cost of living, you have now bled this country dry. Our economic stability has collapsed. Our empire is continuing to collapse. The more you extend militarily, that's what happened in Rome. And furthermore, now we're at the point of possible nuclear annihilation of all these different territories. And I'm not making this hyperbole because all the publications are now releasing statements saying prepare. Well, how can we prepare when we don't even have the infrastructure to prepare for such an attack? You dumb idiots. You dumb freaking idiot. Bill Blair, ladies and gentlemen. The Minister of National Security. Couldn't care less about our nation's security, but God forbid we have to do everything we can. Everything. Drain the country dry for Ukraine to protect its sovereignty. Here's something interesting also to point out that this guy John Moran pointed out. Ursula von der Leyen, who I believe is the president of the European Commission or the European Union? I think it's the Commission. She stated, has confirmed that Canada has been training Ukrainian soldiers since 2015. This was shortly after the U.S.-led far-right coup in Kiev, at a time when Ukrainian soldiers were attacking Donbass, which had been resisted the coup and its anti-Russian intentions. So, even people within the NATO alliances know the true intentions of this war. They know that Russia is countering their aggression that they started way before February 2022. Way before then. They know it. They have done it personally. Because this lady even knows what Justin Trudeau has done. That they were sending soldiers over there to build up warfare. That's what we do. We send soldiers over there to cause chaos enough for other countries to attack, and then next thing you know, we're in war. So, the whole narrative of defending Ukraine away from the bad guys of Russia, no, we were the bad guys. We are the ones that provoked warfare because we want to go straight to directly attacking Russia. But we thought, hey, we can use Ukrainians as cannon fodder. We can use them and sacrifice their lives, damage their country, damage their sovereignty for our bidding. And all this, way before 2022, happened as far back as 2015 with our soldiers. And even probably further back as new documents are being released. As people like Professor John Mearshire or Jeffrey Sachs will tell you. That could go back as far back as the 90s, far back as the 80s. Because keep in mind, the Western empires, the imperialist empire of militarism, has always wanted to recreate another Cold War situation. They just need a country to play the game along with it. And they said, hey, we'll take Ukraine. We'll take Ukraine. We'll install this puppeteer. We'll install this comedian. Run him on a peace ticket. Make him the leader of this country. And there we go. We'll tell him that you have to attack Russia because Russia is going to come in and take over and storm in, and they're a bunch of terrorists. even though we're the ones advancing the warfare, we're the ones that are telling the Azov Battalion and training alongside them to attack Ukrainians, to attack people in the Donbass region, in the Donetsk, in the Crimea region, which Russia wanted to protect. Russia wanted to protect them because those are Russian ethnic Ukrainians. That now Russia has taken over that territory. So, just for everyone to be aware of that. So, here's also another side of the story of the true intentions of why we invaded Ukraine, as Lindsey Graham is going to explain to you and reveal on Face the Nation here. Why exactly are we so dead set on Ukraine? Well, he accidentally tells you.
Trump do to get the weapons flowing? He created a loan system. They're sitting on 10 to 12 trillion dollars of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That 10 to 12 trillion dollars of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West.
We don't want the minerals to go towards Putin. We don't want the minerals to go towards China. So our intention is to invade that country, tell them we're defending them, make them sacrifice their own people in this egregious warfare, this proxy war, and then we'll just come in, we'll clean things up, we'll sell parts of it to BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and a bunch of U.S. imperialistic corporations. They'll take over parts of Ukraine and sell it off to us suckers. Isn't that interesting? We're going to nuclear warfare for another business war. Just like Afghanistan, just like Libya, just like Syria. It all comes down to money. It all comes down to a business opportunity. If there was no business opportunity, we probably wouldn't even bother with it. We wouldn't bother with Ukraine. We didn't bother with Ukraine until about, 2016 or 2014, however you like to look at it. But there you go. Lindsey Graham just openly admitting this. Listen again.
What did Trump do to get the weapons flowing? He created a loan system. They're sitting on 10 to 12 trillion dollars of critical minerals in Ukraine. They could be the richest country in all of Europe. I don't want to give that money and those assets to Putin to share with China. If we help Ukraine now, they can become the best business partner we ever dreamed of. That 10 to 12 trillion dollars of critical mineral assets could be used by Ukraine and the West, not given to Putin and China. This is a very big deal how Ukraine ends. Let's help them win a war we can't afford to lose. Let's find a solution to this war. But they're sitting on a gold mine to give Putin 10 or 12 trillion dollars of critical minerals that he will share with China is ridiculous.
I love how he says it's ridiculous because the notion that maybe Putin's going to share the opportunity to China, whereas the good-hearted United States is just going to invade that country and steal it for ourselves. First of all, Putin is less regarded on going for those minerals. He couldn't care less about the minerals. And I know people are going to say, well, that makes you sound like a Putin puppet there. Are you aided by Russia? Is Russia paying you to say that? Does it look like it? I mean, if Russia was paying me to do this podcast, to do this live stream, I think I'm doing a horrible job. I'd be having a $60,000, production budget and eating filet mignon in front of you. I'm not getting that. This is just my own thoughts. So the fact that Lindsey Graham is openly just stating the fact that there are huge amounts of mineral reserves, just like we said with Afghanistan, just like we say with Syria, just like Palestine. One of the biggest attributes of why they're continuing this genocide and why so many businesses are pledging their allegiance for that genocide is because Palestine's also on natural mineral wealth. They're on natural gas supply. They want to cultivize it. And God forbid, Putin putting that to use, or even the Ukrainians using that for their own means. We can't allow that to happen. You have to sell it to us good guys, the blood sick sycophants at the U.S. Capitol, the in BlackRock and Vanguard, because that's the responsible thing to do. You don't want to give it to a guy like Putin. He's going to share it. How dare he? The same psychotic person that would blow up his own pipeline. Remember that? Putin's apparently going to blow up his own pipeline. He's going to kill off his own natural resource that his country is flourishing his GDP on. Yeah, he's going to ruin that because he's such a dumb guy, but also a smart, evil genius. Speaking of smart, evil, genius, dumb friggin' asses, so there's also this, and this is from, I think, last year that this was posted. BlackRock is now meeting with Zelensky in Ukraine. In November, the Ukrainian economy minister and BlackRock signed an MOU hiring BlackRock as an advisor on Ukrainians' post-war reconstruction. U.S. taxpayers paid the war bills. Private firms get the profits. And here is, here's MSNBC proclaiming this. So now they're finally revealing, now that we're at warfare, now we're at the tension of nuclear war, hey, I guess we should tell our audience what this is really about. Listen to this.
About the money we could spend on Ukraine. We're talking $40 billion a year, which is about 5% of the U.S. defense budget. Our defense budget, $800 billion, $40 billion, about 5%. For that amount of money, we are breaking the phalanx of Russia's military. And those are the best dollars we have ever spent in defense. And point two, all that money, that $40 billion a year, that's not a check we're handing Zelensky. All that money is paid to U.S. defense contractors, making our defense industrial base stronger. Russia gets weaker. To Joe's point, final thought, the Russians today are spending 35% of their GDP on defense. That is not a prescription for long-term growth.
Yeah, Willie, this is a...
Think of the economic value of this. We can't afford to not have this war. This even goes back when Rand Paul got interviewed by CNN, and I think it was Wolf Blitzer who was doing the interview, and Wolf Blitzer came out and said, well, think about the jobs. You want to cancel all these wars and be concerned about our country. What about the jobs? What about the manufacturers that make these detrimental bombs that are going to blow up the heads of children? Aren't you concerned about that? Aren't you concerned about the economy? Aren't you concerned about the business foundations of a bloodthirsty, soaking, enriched military-industrial complex that we were warned about in the 60s by Dwight D. Eisenhower? Like, I'm stunned that they're even saying this on MSNBC. I'm stunned that they're even saying this. Listen to this again.
About the money we could spend on Ukraine.
About the money.
We're talking $40 billion a year, which is about 5% of the U.S. defense budget. Our defense budget, $800 billion, $40 billion, about 5%. For that amount of money, we are breaking the phalanx of Russia's military. And those are the best dollars we have ever spent in defense. And point two, all that money, that $40 billion a year, that's not a check we're handing Zelensky. All that money is paid to U.S. defense contractors, making our defense industrial base stronger. Russia gets weaker. To Joe's point, final...
He's even just admitting that it's not even going to Ukraine. It's not even going to Zelensky himself. It's going to the military contractors. He's openly stating this is a money laundering scheme, which is something that I've been saying, something that other podcasters have been saying, all the skeptics of the Ukrainian warfare that's been going on over there for the last 2 years. This is what we've been saying. This is all we've been saying. That this is just another business opportunity to money launder countries to send directly to the military-industrial complex, to the contractors, to the people that profit off of death and disparity every single damn time. And here's
thought.
further
The
response.
Russians today are spending 35% of their GDP on defense. That is not a prescription for long-term growth.
Yeah, Willie, this is a generational impact on Russia. And yes, it's helped U.S. businesses.
Yes.
About the
Even Joe Scarborough. Well, this is a generational impact that's helping U.S. businesses. I would argue that it's not a generation impact on Russia. It's a generational impact on Ukraine. Because the amount of people that are sacrificed, the amount of people, in the prime years of from 18 to almost 50 now, I think that's the current age of people serving, have been wiped out across the board. You're killing off entire generations, plural, of Ukrainians in this battle. And I would also argue it's an effect on generations here. Because that money, that splurging, the mass amount of money laundering that went to equip this proxy war to the situation we're in right now, that is going to be a burden that my generation, future generations, my grandkids' generations are going to have to pay back on. The same like the $1 trillion expenditure that people are now have to face and deal with after Afghanistan, after Iraq. Because war does come with a price tag. War comes with an extraordinary price tag. And you know for a fact that the contractors aren't going to pay for it. The BlackRock and Vanguard, they're not going to pay anything for it. They don't feel any remorse or sacrifice or any sort of moral ambiguity to repay the damages. They don't care. It's us. Us. Who didn't have a choice. We didn't want war to happen. We didn't vote on this. Nobody votes for war. But we get our tax dollars stolen. The Federal Reserve is stolen and siphoned away to equip military contractors for their horrendous business practice of manslaughtering entire nations and cultivating coups and overthrowing governments and just the absolute annihilation of entire populations. And they're even addressing this on MSNBC because they can't even hide it anymore. They can't hide it anymore. They can't say, oh, well, still it's defending. No, they got to come clean. That all this time, it was a huge money laundering scheme. It was an opportunity for the military contractors to build up warfare, to build up tensions in Ukraine. That's why they overthrew the government in 2014. They trained a bunch of Azov battalion, mostly Canadian soldiers that we were warned about back in 2019. And they advanced warfare. They poked the bear so much that Russia retaliated. Russia did not just storm in the middle of the night and decide, I'm just going to take over the junk. This was all preemptive warfare. This was just a money laundering business opportunity for the military-industrial complex, for the military contractors. And now look at it. Now look at it. You have over a million Ukrainians dead. You have such financial burdens of this country and other countries that have pledged allegiance to support this outrageous warfare that generations are going to have to pay back for. That our economies are scattering. People can't afford the basic necessities. High inflation, cost of living. And this is what paid. This is what it went towards. This is where all the money went towards. And now you have demented Joe Biden as he's walking out into thin air, having 1 foot on the grave and 1 foot on the nuclear launch codes.